Hello everybody, my name is Deku, and welcome back to MILGRAM. Here it is. Here it is. Been waiting for her. You've been waiting for the child. Oh god. Depending on how well this goes, we could go... I'm so worried about what's happened to her. Apostle and death. What the fuck are you talking about? Apostle and death for a fucking child. What? Why is the child called... okay. And magic. Okay. I just want to take a moment really quickly, as always, to give a thanks to everybody that has supported both this channel and this series. Here are the patrons over here. Whoa, look at that. Whoa, look at that. It's the people right there. It's all the patrons because we don't have members on YouTube yet. If you want to become a member, you can do so. It's the link in the description. It's as low as 99 cents a month or $1. I don't know which one is easier for you to do, but yeah, other than that, if you want to see your name over here or at the very end where I speak it and say it all out loud, you can do so by becoming a supporter monetarily. Other than that, my predictions for this is a few different things. Childhood abuse. Pedophilia. Or perhaps something... speaking on Lolicon, possibly, because it's anime, and it's a child, and I see that bunny suit sort of thing down there. Hopefully, it's not what I think it is, but you never know. Let's hope they treat this well. Also, why is one of her music videos called Death Parade? I saw that once, and I talked about it, and I posted about it on the... on the community page, and everyone was like, don't watch it, don't look at it, don't pay attention to it. I'm like, of course I'm not going to, but what the fuck am I looking at? Why is she wearing a hat now? That does also make me wonder if these characters, while they are over the course of MILGRAM, if their character designs will change, right? Which would be very cool and indicative of, like, the different trials, right, as it continues forward. So, with that out of the way... Also, I want to mention what I think about what Kazui, his thing is. I think he might just be gay. Maybe he cheated? I don't know. Maybe he just wasn't, like, faithful. Maybe he was lying. Maybe he was, like, an extrovert. Maybe he was gay. And then that ended up having his wife kill herself. And therefore, technically, that's a murder. And in that case, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, baby boy. Let a young, hot stud like myself come and be your daddy. Oh, my God. I can fix him. He can be my bottom boy. Oh my good lord. Hold on, I gotta take a quick hit. The gods of Yahweh don't want me to have my depressed 40-year-old boy wife. Okay. Let's start with Amane's first voice drama, Apostle and Death. She's so cute. She's so cute. She's so cute. She's so cute.
Amane. はい。待たせましたね。遅刻です。さて、尋問を始めよう。嫌です。
I wonder... It could be really interesting that they take this and make her the most, like, mature out of all of them. Right? That could be interesting.
です。は？認めません。どういうことだ？まずはきちんと謝るべきです。はあ。いいですか？時間はどんな環境においても厳守されるべきです。悪いことをしたら謝らねばなりません。
And that makes sense of why those are both my personal rules and those of society. You're a little jit. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. What are you on? You are a little shit. Who? What the fuck? Those are my personal... You need to go finish algebra, all right? Well, East Asian society, you're probably doing calculus at 12 because of the monumental pressures put on children by East Asian society so that they can somehow be good to work and slave away for a corporation. South Korea! Interesting. And that whole thing about breaking things and breaking rules and then having to apologize for it. Remember back during her introduction in the Voice of Prisoners that her thing that was corrupted was, I'm sorry for breaking the rules. And her saying, go inside, all over and over and over.
それは私のルールであると同時に社会のルールでもあるはずです。
もういいか。尋問を始めたいんだが。
いいえ、話はまだ終わっていません。まずは真摯に謝罪すべきです。
Oh, that makes me curious that if... Oh my god, I'm going to be pausing throughout so much of this because she's a child, right? And like, how does a child murder? I mean, there have been obviously plenty of child murderers, and all of them have been incredibly complicated of why they did so. But it makes me curious is that maybe she killed somebody because they broke the rules, so she's...
その顔、何か言いたいことでも
And I guarantee that this is where it's going to be brought into question. Was she made this way? Was it nature versus nurture sort of thing?
ままごとに付き合ってあげたい気持ちは山々なんだがな。いいか、アマネ。
なんでしょう。
勘違いするな。お前は囚人で、僕は看守だ。ここには明確な上下関係が存在する。お前に指図される言われはない。
お言葉ですが、あなたが看守だというならば、囚人の規範にならねばいけないのでは？
笑わせるな。僕はお前たちの学校の先生ではない。お前らを強制して正しい道を歩かせることが目的ではない。ミルグラムはお前らを真人間にして社会復帰させることがゴールの空間ではない。必要なのは混じりっ気なしの純粋な観察と判断だ。
観察と判断。
必要なのはお前の罪を許すか許さないかだけだ。それ以上の責任を負うのは仕事の範疇外だ。僕はお前が小さな子供だろうとそこを曲げるつもりはないね。
なるほど。
なるほど。
そうですか。
そういうことだ。じゃあ尋問を。
では、看守としてではなく、あなたとして私に謝ってください。
僕として？
そう、一人の人間として。約束をたがえたら謝る。当然のことです。何ですか？ほうけた顔をして。あなたは人間ではないのですか？
いや、きっとそうだな。悪かったな。
はい。私は優しいの。
he just... I'm pretty... What S just said, was that the, like... I forget, like, what way that is, like, what kind of apology that is. If that was very curt of them, or if that was very, like, or if that was more polite of them to say, right? Because I think the most polite is Gomen Nasai, well, then, like, the Gomen Nasai, something. It's like saying, arigatou gozaimasu. Something. Like, play the clip of the Rakugo guy talking about saying arigato.
But the most polite Japanese, I still don't understand how they got this one. 47 different ways to say thank you. 47 different ways to express gratitude. The top one, the most polite, is this. Nanto kansha moshiagete yo iara kotoba mo gozaimasen. In order for me to express the gratitude I feel towards you, there are no words. No words. I got 47 words right here. Then from the middle, when you go down, towards less polite, maybe rude, these become shorter. Arigato, domo, shimasen, suman, gomen, warui. Warui! I look at warui actually means bad. I realized later that warui is a shortening of a longer sentence. You did something kind for me, so I feel badly that you took the trouble, something like that. So shorten it to bad. I think they shortened it too much here. I know in Japan you guys love to shorten things, right? Convenience store, kombini. Personal computer, pasokon. Oh, those are fine, I understand, huh? Brad Pitt, Hollywood star. First name, Brad, one syllable. Second name, Pitt, one syllable. Brad Pitt. First name, last name, two syllables. Technically impossible to have a shorter name in English. Here you call him Brappy.
Brappy?
Apparently you want to shorten things. And then, like for McDonald's, the restaurant, you have a choice of shortenings. In Tokyo, Maku. In Osaka, Makudo. But my favorite is the Japanese hamburger chain restaurant, First Kitchen. In Japanese, Fasuto Kitchen, commonly shortened to Fucking. Very popular date spot, I heard. But I think this warui, I think it's too short. But there's one more below warui. 47 different ways to express gratitude. The lowest one, the least polite, the closest to rude. It was written at the bottom of the list in the katakana syllabary, which I told you are for loan words from other languages. Sankyu.
Sankyu. Fuck you!
悪かったな。
悪かったな。
私は優しいので許しましょう。よかったですね。私の両親相手だったら
I'm kind, so I shall forgive you. So humble.
あと1時間はお説教を受けていますよ。
お前の家に生まれないでよかったよ。
そうですか。さあ、遅くなりましたし、尋問を始めましょうか。
それは僕のセリフだけどな。
百瀬天音、12歳です。小学6年生です。
まったく、その年で堂々としたものだな。大人でもこの環境に恐れを感じているというのに。
やれやれ。
全然怖くないですよ。私のことは神様が守ってくれていますから。
そういうところは子供なんだな。
確かに。
What god is she talking about, though? Is she talking about Shindo god, possibly? Or is she talking about evangelical god, right? Because, I mean, Christianity isn't very big in Japan, but there is a noticeable sect of it, right? I mean, it was an entire fucking plot point in with Abijah Fowler in Blue-Eyed Samurai, right? And in reality, duh. And obviously there was the crucifixion of, like, I think, what was it, the 13, like, people that came, the missionaries that came.
これは突飛な出来事です。しかし、私は試練みたいなものなのだと認識しています。きっと乗り越えた時に、私はもう一つ成長できるのだと思います。
首相な心がけだこと。
あと何でしょう。
I wonder if your favorite study is Japanese. Is that basically just like saying my favorite subject is English? And like instead of saying that in English, right? Which is really weird. I don't know why they just don't call it like lit or like literature or, you know, study or I don't know, fucking whatever. But yeah, I'm wondering if they're going to be going into like the corruption of how, you know, religion can corrupt people. Now, I think this is a good time to mention this, right? I've always labeled myself as leftist / Marxist. That a lot of people think that automatically means that I'm anti-religion. I'm anti-organized religion that is for profit, obviously, right? And then using people's faith as a form of garnering profit, right? I mean, look at any sort of Catholic megachurch here in the U.S., right? Like, that is just to get more money. That is what that is. That is a business expense. Like, and they don't hide it either. Holy shit, I gotta sneeze. Excuse me. But, yeah, it's one of those things with like organized religion to where you spend a lot of money on it. But I have no problem with like personal faith and the like of like, or even like organized faith, right? Of people going to church, right? Because that's a part of their faith, you know, mosque, temples, churches, and other places for gathering for faith. Like, that's completely fine by me. But I'm wondering if this is going to go into how faith can corrupt people into doing bad things, possibly, right?
特技は早寝早起き、趣味は勉強、得意な教科は国語です。野菜が好きで、牛、豚、鳥などの肉類は食べられません。他に何か聞きたいことはありますか？
Such basic answers, and I'm really liking that.
さん、何をぼーっとしているのですか？職務怠慢ですか？
お前も人殺しなのだなと思ってな。
は？その質問はどういう意味でしょうか？あなたがそう言って私たちを集めてきたのではないですか？
言葉通りの意味だ。少し言葉遣いが大行ということを除けば、お前は普通の小学生に見える。
言葉遣いは、そうですね。教育と環境のおかげでしょうか。
Which is very interesting because she speaks very maturely, but whenever you actually dig apart and like take apart what she's actually saying, it's very basic.
それで
Kind of like how Elon Musk talks.
とても人殺しには見えない。
You don't even begin to look like
なる
murder.
ほど。それは外見や年齢ということですかね。
そうかもしれないな。
感謝
Guilty, 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 guilty.
さんは子供であれば人を殺さないとお思いですか？
そういうわけではない。ミルグラムが選んできた以上、囚人が人の死に関わっていることには間違いない。それは前提だ。それが覆れば全て意味のないことになってしまう。
では何でしょう？子供は普通人を殺さないですか？子供であれば人を殺したことに何か事情があるか。
Holy shit, okay. Settle down there. Settle down. Settle down. I think yes and no, obviously. Duh. I mean, I think your age does not matter, but can also play a point, right? Like, if you are a child and you killed somebody, right? And like, you know, something like sociopathic tendencies or the like, to use pop culture, right? Let's look at Doflamingo from One Piece. He was a child that was both groomed, but was also having evil within him ever since he was a child, right? You could say because he was raised by celestial dragons that was just imprinted into him, but we are kind of clearly shown that regardless of that, because of how young he was and how he was off of Marijois, that him being evil was not just because he was a celestial dragon. It was something more. It was something within his soul within that moment. You could argue otherwise, which is where the interesting parts of his character comes into play. And then also, obviously, being, you know, manipulated by trouble, but not even particularly groomed in a way to become that, but he was groomed in the way that it bolstered that. So, yes, in a scenario like Doflamingo, yeah, fuck that little kid, right? Punted into the sky, right? Turn around, look at the flowers, all right? That's all I gotta say. Turn around, look at the flowers. But in those cases, like, yeah, I would say, like, maybe put into like what they are, like what they've done into consideration and how young they are. But other kids, juvie, like, that's not enough for them, right? Like, these are kids that, like, actively killed. You could try maybe therapy, but fuck. As a therapy will work, right? So, sometimes therapy doesn't work in certain scenarios. But on the flip side of that, there are children who who were just in bad scenarios and only know that thing about them. Right? Like, I remember one time I knew somebody who grew up in a really bad space, right? Like, third world country is where I'll keep it at. And they told me about how they had to do bad things to other kids to survive. And in a case like that, that's the material conditions around you pushing you to be a certain way, right? It's kind of like the whole idea behind like American schools, of why how American schools foster violence, and other things along those lines, and how our environments fosters violence. And in that case, therapy could just be what you need so that you can break away from that conditioning, right? So in some cases, yeah, taking into consideration that they are children is necessary. I absolutely believe that. That's a very hard-hitting moral question, and I love that I get to talk about that. Because, again, obviously from a leftist perspective, right, currently, putting a kid in juvie isn't going to work, right? Because, it's just the exact same as, prison, but for kids. And then there's obviously the idea of children being charged as adults, which in itself is also wrong, but that is entirely dependent on the cases as well. But you also have to take into consideration of the nuance of the prison system within America that will willingly treat the most innocent among them to do such a thing like that, right? Because you can always charge a child as an adult just for a political message. Again, I refer to the black child who was killed. He was killed a long time ago, back in like the 60s or 70s, which to a lot of people isn't a long time ago. And in the grand scheme of things, within the history of America, that was last week, right? But to many of this generation, that was a long time ago. That was over 40 years ago, right? And people are in their 70s now. But that was still a child being killed for ideological reasons, such as racism, other than anything else that was actually playing into anything like possibly the conditions around them. You could even bring up the one of the biggest things that is often used as a form of critique to socialism and to leftist ideas is the killing of the Tsar family, right? Where amongst them were children, and they were purposefully killed. It was not accidental. They were willingly killed. And the youngest was 13, I think, and the eldest, the most famous, was Anastasia at 17. And you have to look at this with a nuance of why it was committed, right? You cannot just overly moralize something into being blatantly good or blatantly bad, right? Without taking into consideration nuance of what was going on, right? In the case of this, the reason why it was done in this scenario was, one, there are some sources that say that these children had, you also have to remember the time period. This was early 20th century, right? Therapy really wasn't a thing that people could like go to, right? Again, not making excuses or anything along those lines, just explain what was going on. That many of the people, from some of the accounts of the people that were a part of the Tsarist like state, mentioned that some of these children were very heavily indoctrinated into monarchism and capitalist thought, right? And the basic, essentially feudalist thought that they were taught and ingrained into, right? And especially someone like Anastasia, who has many different interpretations of who she was as an individual. Again, one of those like Marie Antoinette questions of like, was she just a figurehead or was she still to blame, and other things like that. And specifically with Anastasia, it was a big point of contention of if she was to be allowed to live or not, because if she was allowed to live, outside forces from everywhere else could possibly come into the nation, or if allowed to let go and into exile, to leave the country, could then be adopted, not like literally adopted, but like taken in by another country and used as a form of propaganda to then be used against the Bolsheviks at that time, and then foster into another monarch to then be supplanted into another state somewhere else, just continuing the line of violence, instead of, possibly remolding her in something along those lines. But given the time period, that really wasn't an option. Some say that she was able to escape, others say that she wasn't, and either way, regardless, whatever happened was done to prevent what was happening with the monarchy at the time in the first place. So that's the nuance. After so many years of struggle against a capitalist machine that was forcing them to be in a peasantry, low mortality or high mortality rate, low literacy rate, starvation, all this other stuff, not owning the means of production and all these other things, that was a necessary sacrifice in the eyes of these people to establish a dictatorship of the proletariat so that people could be free. And you can see what happened afterwards for the justification of it, because afterwards, after the Tsar state was dissolved, and the Bolsheviks came into power, literacy rate shot up. Worker satisfaction shot up. Starvation rates shot down, right? Like, even for decades after, even after Lenin's death, it was declassified many years ago that the whole idea of starvation in socialist countries was constructed as propaganda to manufacture consent by the CIA. So that there being done, it just kind of shows a lot of different things. Also, as a side note here, to finish that off, is that if you didn't know, in the USSR, not saying that it was the greatest place on earth, but to kind of, dissuade disinformation, is that they actually had a higher caloric intake than the average American within the 40s, 50s, and 60s, before its illegal dissolution in 1991. But yeah, that's just to wrap all of that thought up. That this entire huge section of if you should take into consideration of a child, that you need to understand the nuances of the situation, of why they did it, how they did it, if they really did it, and who the child is in the first place, and what's going on as well. So there we go. Let's keep going.
かもしれないですか？だから許すべきとでも思っていますか？
そこまで言ってはいない。ただ
Me too, as I'm just like being like, I did not go that far to say that.
少なくとも日本の法
Guaranteed somebody in the comments might say something. I'm like, that was not what I was saying.
律ではそうなっている。刑事責任年齢に達していないとされる。
不服ですね。まるで子供であれば自我が未熟であると決めつけたような言い草です。
幼少期は 親の教育の影響が強いのは事実だろう。成人に比べて自我が未発達であるという側面は否めない。
Like I just said.
では、12歳の私が考えていることは不完全なのでしょうか。今私が確かに感じている思いは、短い人生なりに培った価
One thing I know for certain was that she was born a yapper. God damn.
値観は、年齢を理由に切り捨てられる、取るに足らないものなのでしょうか。12歳の私に自我はありませんか。それでは16歳のムーさんには少しだけ自我があり、18歳のユノさんには自我があり、20歳のフータさんは完全に自我が確立していますか。
あまね。
仮にですが、私が誰かを殺したいほど憎いという気持ちを持ったとして、それを自分の意思ではないと軽んじられることほど
Depends on the child. Depends on the person.
屈辱的なことはないと感じます。あなたは先ほど私を子供扱いしないと言いましたね。しかし年齢を理由に私が自ら人を殺しそうにないと感じる時点で私を子供扱いしているのです。子供だからって油断してると
I'll kill a fucking child because they're a child. Fuck kids. Abortion. Post-birth abortion.
殺されますよ。
感想を言っていいか。
Please do
どうぞ。
as.
大人だろうと子供だろうと、お前は立派にめんどくさいよ。
あった。お褒めに預かり光栄です。
言ってろ。ま、へりくつだが、理屈は
What's 17 more years?
通っている。法律が便宜上、ラインを引く必要性は理解しているが、僕までそれに感覚を引っ張られる必要はないか。
柔軟ですね。
それに、子供扱いされる腹立たしさは、つい最近身をもって知ったしな。
This is the same way S
今
is.
思い出しても腹が立つ。
Because very interesting, what I really like so far is that Amane and S are very much parallels to each other. They are very similar to one another in how they want to be treated. In terms of children, they are parallel, but also the exception among a lot of children, because a lot of children are the same. That's just how, developmental stages work, right? I mean, look at, like, cells in the body. We all start as stem cells, but over time, those cells become different, but they make up a whole. And much like these children, maybe instead of becoming a limb, they became a cancer. Just saying. But yeah, that is really interesting of how these two are like exceptions to how children normally are. And not to say children are stupid or dumb. I mean, I think a lot of children are fucking icky, right? Like little fucking shits I think are the most annoying thing ever. Don't want them near me. But I also love kids. God. Oh, it's the older brother instinct in me, as someone that has a younger brother and has had many younger siblings or relatives. That I like kids. I also fucking hate them at the same time.
ミルグラムらしくないことをした。お前をきちんと罪深い人殺しとして扱おう。囚人番号8番アマネ。
はい、それはありがとうございます。
なんだ、まだクレームがあるのか。
人殺しですか。
もう、なんなんだお前は。お前がそう扱えと言っただろう。
いいえ、12歳だから人を殺さないという考えが間違っているというのと、私が人殺し呼ばわりされるのが不服だというのは別の問題です。私は感情と論理は別で扱いますから。
はいはい、大層なことだ。では、あくまで人殺しであることは認めていないと。
人を殺したと言われればそうなのかもしれません。しかし間違ったことをしたとは思っていません。
それはお前が決めることではない。ミルグラムにおいては僕が決める。僕が間違いだと言えば間違いだ。
あれを間違っているというのならば、私はあなたの方が間違っていると思います。
なるほど。しかしミルグラムにおいてはともかく、人殺しは法律上の罪であることは間違いないだろう。それでも
That's another thing. When is killing right and when is killing wrong? Personally, this is not the episode for this, but personally, I believe there is a right time and a wrong time. But we've already talked about that somewhat in this series so far, so.
間違ったことをしていないと。
罪と言いますが、今看守さんが行っている行為も犯罪なのではないですか？
Extrajudicial.
まあ、私は法律よりも大事なものがあると思いますので、それで看守さんを軽蔑したりはしませんよ。
まったく口の減らない。
ですから私はミルグラムのこと嫌いではありません。一辺倒の法律よりも別の基準で罪を判断する、それは私の思想にも近いのですよ。
ほう。
私の善悪の基準は別のところにあります。私の胸の中に、血液に、DNA にしっかりと刻まれています。
ではその基準の中ではお前の人殺しは罪ではないと。
はい。
なるほどね。
なるほど。
私は楽しみにしています。あなたの判断が私の善悪の基準と一致するのか。そうすれば外の世界よりもミルグラムこそが我々にとって正しい世界なのかもしれません。ミルグラムはあなたの判断で決まるのでしょう。もしかするとあなたは正しい世界の理解者なのかもしれない。
一致しなければ。
Yeah, she's fucking insane. She is fervently faith-induced zealot insanity.
どうする？
お前を否定してやる。おや、もう終わりですか？楽しい時間でした。多少のすれ違いはありましたが、あなたは私に向き合って話をしてくれます。それはとても嬉しいことです。あなたは私たちの理解者になってくれるかもしれない。そんな予感に満ちた素敵な時間。え？
黙れよ。
黙れ。
覚悟しろよ。囚人番号8番。
看守さん？
お前が求めたのはミルグラムとの真っ向勝負だ。黙って聞いてればベラベラと勝手なことを。基準を作るのは僕だ、お前じゃない。思い上がるな、神様気分か。
どうしました？暴力ですか？
どうした？ただ押さえつけてるだけだぞ。動けないのか？子供じゃないんだろう。
何を？
すまないな、僕の覚悟が足りなかったようだ。お前の言葉通り全てフラットに見てやるよ。子供扱いもしない。きちんとお前を見つめてやる。
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big things about her character so far is childish god complex that doesn't want to be treated like a child, because in reality they kind of really aren't anymore, but like still are, right? Like it's just one of those things where there are some things that are true, but that does not mean inherently other things are true as well. Like, you can still absolutely label her as not an adult. You can still label her as things that would be associated with adolescence and the like, right?
Te okuraになってから子供だからと言い訳するなよ。
私を侮辱するつもりですか？
囚人番号8番あまね。さあ、お前の罪を歌え。
Let's go. Thank God it's not a... Okay. Fuck! Yeah, very clearly it's not just one thing or the other. God damn. 私は幸せです。もっと笑顔をされないように覚悟を決めました。でも全然怖くないですよ。愛だからほんといい感じって思います。ほら素敵でしょ。神様こういうのってありですか？たまには弱ったっていいですか？違います。守ってくれるいい子にはシュッだよ。もういいなんて言わないです。笑うアンテンプしてくれます。こう使います。もういい子になるしかないですよ。Organ music, holy shit. Before I break this down, I want to mention that regardless of what we're shown in these videos, it is entirely dependent on the person, how willing they are to like express what they've done. and it can always be misconstrued and twisted into the eyes of what they see or want it to be, or even things like trauma. I mean, look at how some of the songs have been very blatant in what's happened, and others have been trying to like put layers of disconnection in between them. And this is the one that is layered the most in disconnection from what they did, and what happened. Also, thank God it's not pedophilia. Yet. So, let's go through this. One, I want to take a moment to say, thank fucking God. I thought that these were like bunny ears, and it was like the bunny bow tie thing that a lot of like bunny suits wear. And because I thought that was like, these were her shoulders, but no, it's the frills on the side. Whew, we avoided tropes, guys. We're in the fucking clear. Very interesting what's going on, right? Very childish. Like, despite everything that she has said, very childish looking. But again, I feel like that's a red herring. I feel like, despite everything she said, to then be shown something very childish is not reaffirmation that, in fact, she is a child and should be forgiven, but it is something to be not taken at face value. It is something that needs to be dissected on its own, right? And that's what we're doing here. I also want to take into, for a second, gachata? Interesting. He looks like an alarm clock, very studious, kind of like he's probably the teacher. And then there's obviously schedule, praise, doing something good. Yuri looks to seemingly be related to, this is like a post bin or like a disposal bin, garbage or something like that. Yeah, and then there's here's a box. Oh, you know what? Dresses all shitty so that he can get more money. One of the big things I was thinking of is, what if she was like the head of a cult, or was like the prize child of a cult, and that's why she sees faith so strongly, right? And this is like donation boxes for like a cult. And then there's this one here, clearly singing choir, hymns, and the like, because this reminds me of like a Shinto priest outfit, right? With the beads, and then the mask, and then the robes, and the like. And she probably, again, one of those things of like where she views all of this in a very childish way, but also extremely maturely at the same time. Very nuanced. Again, nuanced. Also, bandages here, kind of like the idea of healing. And then a animal gets hurt, and she tries to help it, and she gets punished for it, right? Divine punishment for what she's done, right? So I'm wondering if her helping it was actually killing it, but in her mind, to make another pop culture reference, it's kind of like Pyrovision from TF2, right? It looks nice to her, but in reality it's not. But then why is she being punished? What could also be happening is that she was actually trying to help something, but this is her being reinforced that death is a natural part and death should happen, and that kind of reinforced something that was already in her head, or maybe even, again, the nature versus nurture thing, that this nurtured her into being a killer. You could even see this whole thing of her, turning into a magical girl as her finally realizing herself as a killer, or something along those lines. Who knows? Who knows? Very complicated of what's happening. But from what we've been able to see, we don't actually know. I just realized something. Notice, this is a cat. But other cats in this exact thing were giving money. The cats aren't literal. They're an embodiment of humans, of people. Just like everything else isn't exactly humanoid, but she's the only human. Again, God complex, because she sees herself as something above the rest. And again, it's kind of like with the light there falling, it's kind of like a stage play and the like. So I'm wondering here, this was a person. This was not a cat. This was a person. And maybe instead of helping, maybe because they sinned or whatever, broke a rule, and instead of trying to repair that rule and being a benevolent God, she was being enforced to try to have to kill instead, and therefore was punished. Which then also kind of leads back into my other theory, where she was just naturally this way, but then further nurtured into something worse. Like, elsewhere, she would have just become like a CEO, right? But now she became like a cult leader or something like that. Very, very interesting. Wow. I can only become a good girl. That too. The lyrics and the way of her being saying like she doesn't want to break promises, how clearly rules have been established for her, and how she's promised or was forced into being something, and now with the ribbon on her thing, she has become a good girl or became commie or something like that. Interesting. And then the facade breaks away because it's just her eyes here. Very neutral eyes too. Hold on. No. Makoto, go the fuck away. Go away. All right. God damn. Shit. Wow. Zoom on in. Good Lord. We talked a lot about a lot of heavy stuff here. So I want to remind everyone to please be respectful in the comments. Please be, try and be cordial. If you want to argue, we can argue, right? If you want to be bad faith arguer, go and do that down in the description. But I'm just going to delete it or argue with you back and call you insults. Why is he the only prisoner with a ribbon connecting his hands together? Oh, anyway, that's for something. That's for the next episode. But yeah, man, goddamn. Wow. That was insane. I really like that one so far. Amane so far, ironically, is becoming my one. She's moving up. Fuda is still my favorite. That's such a funny sentence to say. Followed by maybe Mahiru, and then by Amane. That's my top 3 so far. And obviously my baby boy, Kazué. I think that those are my top 4 so far. But man, I'm so curious to see how well this goes. This just like hit a point where I'm like, if I don't like anything else, I want to keep watching just to see what they're trying to talk about with Amane. But man, if you want to support me, I have a Patreon down in the description. It is as low as $2.50 a month. Memberships are as low as $9.99, and the Patreon is also free. And you get to have your name seen at the very beginning of every video and at the end of every video, where I actually read it off as a part of the Ultimate Pirate Fleet. So thank you, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye. Thank you to the ultimate members of the fleet, aka the members and patrons: Saline, Peachy Bun, Sleepy Sheepy, Lola Barzal, Finch R, Emanali, Belle, Lily McMillan, Henri, Shira, Angel313, Andrew Ortega, Ariana Henry, Yoan, Test, Helen, Miles Morales, Buglarka Boggy, Moonze W, and you, and Lind, the Vocaloid Nerd ARG. If you wish to support me, you can do so by becoming a member through the links in the description down below. You are all a part of the crew, but only some can achieve ultimate status. But then again, you've already heard the outro of this video. Thank you.